Hey, welcome to Viking Preparedness. Welcome to Shofar Mountain. I am Pastor Joe Fox, and this is going to be a religious video. So if you don't want to watch it, that's cool. Come back for the next one tomorrow. All right. I did a video on Sukkoth for Viking Preparedness. I don't even know if I've put it up on Shofar yet. I'll do that. Kind of a mini teaching on what Sukkoth is and blah, blah. And a lot of people contacted me either via email or Patreon messaging or in the comments themselves and asked a lot more questions about Sukkoth. Many of y'all are feeling convicted to keep Sukkoth, to observe Sukkoth, to do what the Father told us to do. And so then the questions flowed. And so I thought I would do this teaching on Sukkoth and kind of come at it a little bit differently and give you some more things. I think the first and most important thing, I don't know if it's the most important, the first thing we're going to talk about is that there's a Greek mindset that most Americans think in, very Western mindset. And that mindset is basically, explain it to me, explain Sukkoth to me, Pastor Joe, so that I know about it, and then once I know about it, I can do it. Right? So make me understand and then I can do. This is a very Western, a very Greek mindset. The Israelites were not Greek. They were not Western. They were an Eastern people. And the Hebrew, we're fond of saying this, the Hebrew way of learning is by doing. And so a Hebrew way of looking at things is, let me do this thing and then I will understand. As opposed to the Western way, let me understand and then I can do this thing. And a simple example is I started studying martial arts back in the early 70s. And there was still a lot of the old ways being taught back then. And we would throw a bazillion punches until finally it would click. And you'd go, oh! They would just say, do this! And you'd do it, and when you did it wrong, they'd hit you. And then finally, after doing it so many times, it clicked. Whereas in Western culture, all right, what I want you to do is make your fist like this, and so understand that doing leads to understanding, and so just do it. Okay, just do the best you can with Sukkoth. I'm not going to leave you there, but I'm telling you, when in doubt, just go do it. Leviticus 23 is your go-to for all the feasts, and they're really not feast, although Sukkoth kind of is. The word feast comes from the Hebrew word moedim, which is appointed times. Times appointed by Yah, the Father, for us to come together and do certain things. And yeah, Day of Atonement comes before that. Day of Atonement's on the 10th day, so if the 15th day is the evening of the 23rd, you can back that up to when the 10th day is, and that's a day of fasting and prayer. But we're not talking about atonement today. Sukkoth. So, just do it. The first time, and I read to you last time from Leviticus 23, and it says, hey, dwell in booths for 7 days, right? And I explained to you, that people go camping. God commands us to go camping. I think that's what I titled that one. The first year, my wife and I were convicted to start keeping Torah, to follow Torah. We were like everybody else. What do we have to do? How do we keep Torah? How do we observe the commandments and statutes and judgments of the Father? Just tell me, I want a checklist to do. We've moved beyond that. But we set up a sukkah. We built a sukkah. It was in windy Kansas, and I built it with tarps and 2x4s, and it was awful. It was just terrible. But we did the best we could do, and we liked it. And I had a friend come over who was keeping Torah, and he came over and celebrated with us and for one day, and he spent the night there and with his son. And he recommended to us, and I am recommending to you, if you're new to this, there is a movie that is available out there. You'll have to find it, called Ushpazim. And if you Google like USHPIZIM, it'll show you what it really is. And we learned a lot from watching that movie. We don't do everything in the movie, but we learned a lot from watching it. So that was good from a brand new starter standpoint. It's kind of an interesting movie. The next year, we made a really nice sukkah. And a sukkah is a booth, right? You're supposed to dwell in your booth. And different people look at that differently. I think Jews say to dwell in it, we have to eat all our meals in our sukkah, but we can sleep inside. I think that's what most Jews do. Some people sleep in their sukkah. I believe when it says dwell in booths, you need to get out there and live in your booth, right? Whether that's your sukkah, which though a sukkah is open to the sky, and if it's a day like today, not so good, or a tent or a caravan or something mobile and temporary, something that you would go on the second Exodus with and live in, right? Because we talked about that last time, about practice. And so I'll put a link to that video down below. It's just a quick video of my son blowing a shofar, and then I kind of come into our sukkah, and you can kind of get an idea of how we made it. It was nice. It was a nice one. And then we've made other sukkahs. So you should build a sukkah. You should. There's a lot of learning and doing, so just go do it. Do you know that we will be celebrating Sukkoth in the millennium? Everyone will be celebrating Sukkoth in the millennium. Where's my glasses? Let's go to Zechariah, shall we? Zechariah. I think we're in 14. Let me see. Zechariah chapter 14. It starts out, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished. This is end times, right? This is that final battle thing going on, right? Boom. So that kind of sets the stage. Now, fast forward. You can go back and read the whole thing on your own, and you should. Fast forward to like verse 16. All right, so now it's the millennial kingdom. Yeshua, Jesus, is in charge. He's our king, right, ruling. And it says in verse 16 of Zechariah 14, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts. And that's actually Yahweh. Yahweh Sabaoth. And host is armies, right? So Yahweh of armies, or Yahovah of armies. Even upon them, it shall be that back up. I'm going to start again at 16. It shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year, I'll read it in English, to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So that's Sukkoth. So here it is in the millennium, and everyone's going to go up and worship Yeshua, Jesus, HaMashiach, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, to keep Sukkoth. Check it out, verse 17. And it shall be that whosoever will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, Yahovah of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. So if they don't come up to the feast, ain't going to be no rain. It's going to be kind of droughty. Isn't that interesting? So if we're going to keep this feast in the millennium, and clearly we kept it before, don't you think you ought to know what you're doing? Maybe a little practice is in order. Maybe you